Our final award this evening is the Lifetime Achievement Award. And again, I'm going to read the remarks that Neil would have given had he been able to be with us tonight, Floyd. I am proud to introduce Floyd Abrams this evening as the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award. Mr. Abrams is truly a legend of First Amendment litigation. With a career that has spanned many decades, he has made First Amendment legal field into what it is today. As a champion of the free press, Mr. Abrams has represented a long list of media organizations, including NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, Time Magazine, Business Week, Hearst, and NPR, among others. Early in his career, Mr. Abrams served as co-counsel for the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case. In this ultimately successful pursuit, he worked to ensure that the Department of Justice could not hide behind disingenuous claims of national security secrecy to hide important information from the American public and to tie the hands of news organizations. Since then, Mr. Abrams has served as the leading mind behind many other significant cases in First Amendment legal history, including representing CNN in its endeavor to persuade the United States Senate to permit the public to view its deliberations regarding whether to convict President Bill Clinton of high crimes and misdemeanors, representing Nina Totenberg and NPR in a leak investigation conducted by the United States Senate relating to the confirmation hearings of Justice Clarence Thomas, and representing former New York Times reporter Judith Miller in legal difficulties resulting from her refusal to reveal confidential sources relating to the outing of Valerie Plame as a covert CIA agent. Mr. Abrams has also taken it upon himself to educate the public and the next generation of First Amendment litigators and scholars. There is probably no one who has spoken more frequently and eloquently about the First Amendment. He has taught at Yale Law School for many years in the hopes that these poor kids in New Haven might actually learn something about the law. He's taught at Columbia Law School as the William Brennan Visiting Professor of First Amendment Law at the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism. And more recently, Yale Law School announced the formation of the Floyd Abrams Institute of Freedom of Expression. This institute's mission is to promote free speech scholarship and legal reform on emerging questions relating to traditional and new media. Unsurprisingly, throughout his long career, Mr. Abrams has earned many prestigious awards and titles. In 2006, he was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. In 2015, he was given Yale Law School's Award of Merit, and in '98, he was a recipient of the William J. Brennan Jr. Award for outstanding contribution to public discourse. He's received the American Bar Association Certificate of Merit for his article published in the New York Times Magazine entitled "The New Effort to Control Information." He's earned the immense respect of those in the media, the legal profession, and our government. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan described him as, quote, the most significant First Amendment lawyer of our age. And Fred Friendly said that Abrams, quote, is to First Amendment rights what Clarence Darrow was to the rights of the accused. Mr. Abrams is someone who has truly transformed the field of First Amendment law, who has committed his life to the defense of these fundamental rights, and we can think of no one more deserving of the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Christie, for all that you've done and all that your staff has done to make this event and all the events through the years of such genuine significance. It's important to honor the people that you're honoring. Leave me out of it, but it matters. And I want to start with just saying that to Christian and Grace, that, and I'm using at least one word that two speakers have used before, but I wrote down 3 words while the two of you were speaking that you filled me with cheer, with joy, and with hope. It is a pleasure and an honor to receive an award the same night that you have. Everyone that has appeared before me today, has changed the world in their own way. Greg has enormously changed the behavior and thinking, and from a university administrative point of view, fear of being listed as a retrograde, sensorial, totally oblivious to First Amendment institution. And they've changed policies. I mean, things have happened as a result of fire and Greg. And Ted is just one of the great lawyers in America, and not just First Amendment. He is a superb lawyer, and his representation of Jim Acosta is only one example of that. He not only deserves this award, he deserves your praise for all that he continues to do for the press. I wanted to say just a few words about where we are in one sense, but to do it by asking a sort of hypothetical question of what we would be like if we did not have a First Amendment. It didn't have to all work out this way. Lots of countries have used different language than we. Sometimes countries that have preserved freedom of the press, sometimes ones that don't. But let me just read two of them to you. One is, quote, citizens are guaranteed freedom of speech, of the press, of assembly, demonstration, and association. That is one country's articulation of their equivalent of the First Amendment. The other, another country, every person shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and belief. Every person shall have the freedom of speech and expression, which include the freedom of the press and other media. The first is Article 67 of the Constitution of North Korea. The second is Article 19 of the Constitution of Eritrea. Those two countries are routinely the last two on the list of countries prepared by Reporters About Borders in terms of who protects free speech and free expression the most and the least. They are constantly ranked as the least protective, the most repressive, and the least free country in any way we would define it in the world, from which there's a lesson. The words don't do it. It's good to have the words. Some very civilized and free-thinking and free countries don't have written constitutions. Great Britain, Israel, others. And they make do without it in a variety of ways I won't go into. But the lesson, I think, of just reading these false words, these lies from North Korea and Eritrea, is that good words alone don't turn the tide. And they can be, as they are in these countries, wholly irrelevant to the reality of life in the countries. We're fortunate, lucky you could say. I think we're better than that, but fortunate that we have a judicial system which basically works and which has certainly protected the First Amendment to an enormous degree on a legal level more than I would say any other country. There's an argument one can make that there are freer countries because the culture in those countries as such is to honor free expression more than we do. Our record is hardly unstained historically as a country. But the fact that we do have courts, that they do enforce the Constitution, and that the Constitution is not a poem. It is not the Declaration of Independence. It is a statement of law, and it is enforced as law by our courts, is very reassuring. So what then would we have? And like Ted, I don't do this to offer a political take, but just what's going on now. What would we have if we didn't have a First Amendment? And we had a president, and Ted has rightly used some of these words, who refers to truthful reporting as fake news, who refers to the press repeatedly as the enemy of the people, a phrase used by Robespierre and Stalin and Goebbels and truly people engaged in the worst acts of terrorism and destruction of freedom in the history of the world. I guess my favorite, my worst view, is when the president said that it was disgusting the press is able to write whatever they want to write. So, I mean, I'll stop with those, and I'm not going to answer the question of what would we be like. We would be totally dependent then on our history, our culture, the ability of the Congress, whoever happened to be in power at that moment. What would not be the case is that even an attorney general who seeks to do anything the president wants to do has to advise him now. You can't do prior restraints on the press. You can't do this to the press. There is law. And for that, at least, I think we should be a bit less unhappy. And we should be appreciative. A final comment. I used the phrase, I think, earlier that people that had spoken before me were, in their own way, but to a real degree, changing the world. That is true of George, even in a situation in which he is being ignored to the extent that the government tries to ignore him. The reality, the hope, but I think the reality in this case is that the fact that he can come here and talk to us and tell us the truth is a hopeful sign that things will, can, and must change. Thank you very much.